right. So first of all, everybody stand up. I feel like, A, it's freezing in here, and like, do some jumping jacks, move around, like do something, get some body heat going in here, because I'm freezing. We have our own singing crew right here. Okay, you can have a seat if you're warm-ish, warmer maybe. So, I'm gonna have to hold this. Computer. Okay. Hi, everybody. This is weird. It's like my people. I am very passionate about the ripple effect. I have been talking about the ripple effect for several years, and we're going to do an activity on the ripple effect. But before we do that, I was asked to share a speech that is basically, if you were at Network 360, you've heard this before, so pretend it's brand new. But it's a little changed for you, but it's the same story. Because people have asked me, last night I was sitting around with Austin, and they were asking me, tell me your story. And that's one thing we all need to get passionate about, is telling our story. Because whether your story matches mine, there's going to be something in my story that resonates with you. So think about it and bear with me, because this is hard in front of my home crowd. But also, if you haven't learned by now, I'm not one for speeches. So I prefer group interaction. I need group participation. Feel free to yell out and stomp me, whatever. It's all good. So we're not going to really do a speech. We're just going to have a conversation. Woo. Who is excited about 2022 and your leadership journey? Okay, who's feeling a little overwhelmed?
Also, yeah.
Be honest.
Both.
Maybe even a little scared. I will give you 2 hands for that. But I promise you, right now, in this very moment, I am the most scared person in this room. You see, there's just something about being back after nearly 2 years of being separated from everyone. There's just something about being in front of my state, my crowd, my people. While I'm enjoying every minute of this, there's also this immense underlying pressure. As we get closer and closer to inaugural, 26 days away if anyone's counting, I'm spending a lot of time reflecting on my leadership journey. Floods of memories have come back, and from attending my very first state governing board meeting, where I watched our last dues increase happen, and let's just say there was a little bit of drama. And from, you saw I call them our 4-4s, they were not 2-2s we wore yesterday, the past presidents, but being in the audience at my very first orientation and witnessing that, which I still believe is the best one ever, which was Linda Chenal's, and everyone was dressed like Tina Turner. My favorite one as a participant, to witness our past leaders come together and do something like that, to welcome our new president into the fold. And every single one of them, we talked forever yesterday about all the different memories and all the different ones we did. And it's just fun to be part of that group, but it's also fun to be in the audience and watch that happen. Did y'all enjoy the rainbow yesterday? Yes. And it wasn't just because we looked so cute in our 4-4s? But I also remember the late nights, the early mornings, the lugging around those banners. I hate those banners. I have had so many bruises from carrying those banners. But there's millions of memories that come flooding back. And I'm reminded that I'm not anywhere that person that I was when I first started attending Women's Council. In fact, many of you know bits and pieces of my leadership journey, but very few of you know the good, the bad, and the ugly. Authenticity, vulnerability, resilience. But how far do I really go? How much do I expose myself to all of you, the leaders of this great organization that I'm supposed to be leading? When you look at me, you see, well, I don't know, what do you see? Y'all are amazing. Don't make me cry.
A daughter.
See a trusted companion friend.
Thank you.
Rock star.
But I have to be honest with you. When I look in the mirror, I see a sham. There are days I look in the mirror and I doubt my ability to lead. There are days I look in the mirror and I worry that I cannot give you everything you deserve. There are days I look in the mirror and I wonder, am I really the right person to serve you? You see, I started my leadership journey with Women's Council at 17 years old. I wasn't even old enough to get my real estate license, let alone join the council, but that didn't stop me from jumping in and starting my leadership journey that leads me to standing before you today. For those of you that don't know my story, let me explain. The first time I heard of Women's Council was when my mom told me that she was going to be local president-elect and eventually president. I had absolutely no knowledge of what she was talking about, but I did know my mom. I remember thinking, there is no way she can do that. She's not a leader. So I jumped in with both feet. I was so afraid my mom would embarrass me that I began doing the newsletter, agendas, scripts, and all those behind-the-scenes things because she wasn't going to fail on my watch. I mean, let's be honest, my 17-year-old reputation was at stake. But the most important thing I did is I sat back and I watched. I watched my mom transform from this tiny, timid voice to a woman that commanded the room when she spoke. I watched her learn. I watched her adapt. I watched her grow. I watched her lead. Women's Council gave her the confidence to lead and the skills to succeed. This organization pulled leadership out of my mom that I never knew existed. She was a leader, and not only did I know it, she knew it too. So after I watched my mom become someone I never knew existed, I mean, good grief, let's be honest, I had known her my whole life. I wanted that for myself. I wanted to discover my potential. What could I become? Have you ever asked yourself what you could become if you just stepped out in faith and tried? So I tried. I tried really, really hard. But I fell on my face in front of the nation. You see, I was really good at the leadership game. I found some people that I thought were leaders and I tried to emulate them. I learned to walk like them and talk like them and dress like them. I considered them to be my mentors, helping to groom me and make me a leader. But in truth, I was only a follower, a great follower, but I wasn't a leader. I used to be agreeable, not one to rock the boat, not make a stand. Oh, sure, I had opinions, but I was never going to speak them. Maybe it was comforting to be liked and accepted by others. Comfort felt good. It felt safe and reduced my fear of rejection. But I shouldn't have stripped away my authentic self just because I feared rejection. Because the more I focused on being liked, the less I tended to the unique parts of myself that made me special. Outwardly, I pretended to have it together. I conformed, even when every fiber of my being wanted to scream. I fit myself into a plastic mold that stifled me. I never felt good enough, or perfect enough, or smart enough, or worthy enough to stand on my own 2 feet and be your leader. I hid behind others for years until I cracked under the pressure and finally started my leadership journey. In fact, discovering my true authentic self didn't start happening until just a few years ago. You heard me right. The majority of my leadership experience was living in an illusion based on other people's beliefs. As Sheryl Sandberg said, I held myself back in both big ways and small by lacking the self-confidence, by not raising my hand, and by pulling back when I should have been leaning in. I had a skewed view of leadership. Nobody told me I had to be a follower, but I thought following the leader made you a leader. However, it only made me a clone. Now don't go feeling bad for me. For the most part, I actually did agree with most of those opinions. But there was one day, there was a fundamental difference of opinions, and I could no longer be silent. I began to find my voice. I started expressing opinions and ideas, And for the very first time, thinking about the longevity of the council with my own eyes, my own brain, and my own heart. This is when I started becoming my authentic self. Ironically, this is the same time I encountered the biggest adversity of my life. The more I found my voice, the more my integrity was questioned. I truly believe that every single person has to go through something that nearly destroys them so they can figure out who they really are. You know, it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. Was it the adversity that made me discover my authentic self? Or was it in discovering my authentic self, I found adversity? Adversity. You all know what they say about karma, right? Well, adversity's her big sister and she doesn't play around. If you're like me and in the midst of adversity, there's a lot of crying. There's a ton of confusion and self-doubt. And did I mention those tears? There's this messy middle and wondering if anyone has ever felt like this before. And if they do, why the heck are we not talking about it? Why are we not having these honest conversations? It feels like we're caught between this person we say we want to be and the person we are right now. Growing through adversity forces us to get real, to get honest, to get transparent. It asks us to level up. I ran for your national treasure, and I lost. And then I had less than 24 hours to decide if I had it in me to possibly face rejection again. And while at the time, I thought it was the hardest decision of my life, it wasn't. I ran and was elected. And then I ran for first vice president and was elected. However, when I interviewed for president-elect, I was told I am not the right fit for the council. Hearing those words absolutely crushed me. I completely fell apart. And this time I had less than 12 hours to decide if I was up for the challenge of my life. Every piece of confidence I had was shattered. You see, I'd been told I was not strong enough. And let's be honest, I probably wasn't. But within 2 hours of hearing those words, I had 3 very defining moments. Somehow I found a tiny bit of courage and a lot of encouragement from some of you in this room. And I showed up to the RPAC major investor reception that same night. I found my safety, my strength, and my why. I'm telling you, every single one of you need a Chris Lee in your life. Chris Lee will be my president-elect. She will be your 2023 national president. And she will be the best president this organization's ever had. You see, I was supposed to be mentoring Chris. Sorry. But there was such a role reversal that night. Chris took me under her wing. She nurtured me. She protected me. And she stood up for me when I couldn't stand up for myself. She taught me that no matter what, you are allowed to protect your space. And that was one heck of a lesson. And then I ran into Leslie Ruda Smith, which will be your 2022 NAR president. And there was an unspoken conversation in our eyes. And she said these words I will never forget. You showed up. I am so proud of you. That simple statement carried me through the following year of challenge after challenge, because I knew if I just kept showing up, the members would know I was the right fit for the council. And the third wasn't just a moment, it was a series of moments at that event. There were conversations with some members that night, conversations of shock, conversations of encouragement, conversations of confusion, conversations of support, and conversations of why I had given over 20 years of my life to an organization, and suddenly I'm not the right fit. I was reminded of my why through these conversations. It's you. It's the members. I had to get real honest with myself real quick about who I am. I had to get real clear on my why I wanted to be your president. The next morning with trembling feet, I gave the speech of my life. And you know I don't like speeches. But it wasn't until recently that I learned how that speech moved the audience. Because in that moment, the speech was only for me. I needed to hear myself give that speech. I needed to see that brave soul muster up some courage and say, I am not backing down. I am not giving up, and I will not go quietly. I believe in this organization and the passion I bring to the table. You see, they told me there was no room for me at the table. So I did the hard work, and I brought my own chair to the table. And now I stand before you today as your next president because the membership believed in me. I found my authentic self. I overcame those odds. Remember, I jumped into Women's Council to find my potential. I found so much more. I found my purpose. Earlier, I shared with you how I got involved in Women's Council because of my mom. As I was leaving to come here to be with all of you, my mom saw me off. In that moment, I finally realized the magnitude of what her saying yes actually meant. Countless lives have been impacted because of her yes. It's not just about all the leaders that sat in these seats before you. It's about the ones that will sit there in the future. You all said yes, just like my mom. Your ripples are going to touch so many people the same way my mom's ripples have moved me. Her ripple became my ripple, which is now your ripple. When you create a difference in someone's life, you not only impact their life, you impact everyone influenced by them. The ripple effect. You can do this, and you will do this. And when things get challenging this upcoming year, I want you to remember this moment right here. I'm entrusting all of you to be the face of Women's Council in your area, and I believe in you. Just be yourself, your messy, beautiful self, and let's ripple on. I talked about my ripple, and we're going to do an activity.